For 30 years, a member of the Korean royal family walked the streets of Seoul, begging food and money from aristocrats who laughed at him. He ate their scraps. He accepted their insults. He dressed poorly, spoke carelessly, and made sure everyone around him believed he was a harmless drunk, a royal clansman who had clearly lost his mind. While he did this, every ambitious rival disappeared. In 1863, his son was chosen as king. The man everyone had laughed at for 30 years walked into the palace, dismissed the officials who thought they were in charge, and began ruling Korea. He was the most dangerous political operator in the country. His name was Ha-eung. He would be known as Heungseon Daewongun, the prince of the great court. He had been performing incompetence for 3 decades. Not one person saw it. Stay with me. Because the most effective Korean ruler of the 19th century was a man everyone thought was a fool. In mid-19th century Korea, being a member of the royal family was one of the most dangerous things you could be. The Joseon court was dominated by powerful aristocratic clans, the Andong Kim clan most prominently, who controlled access to the king, managed succession, and eliminated anyone who threatened their position. Royal family members who seemed ambitious were destroyed. Those who seemed harmless were tolerated. Ha-eung was born in 1820 to a branch of the royal family with legitimate claims to succession. He watched other relatives die. He made a calculation. He would appear to have nothing, no ambition, no threat, no value as an enemy. The act he performed for 30 years, the drinking, the poverty, the apparent incompetence, was deliberate. The people who might have killed him never saw a reason to. The moment that 30-year performance ended is one of the most remarkable political reversals in Korean history. When King Gojong died in 1863, without an heir, the Queen Dowager needed to choose the next king. Ha-eung had positioned himself carefully. His son Myeongbok was 12 years old, from a branch of the family that was not directly threatening to the dominant clans. He seemed manageable. Ha-eung worked back channels to ensure his son's selection. The Queen Dowager chose Myeongbok. He became King Gojong. Under Joseon law, because Gojong was a minor, a regent would govern. That regent was supposed to be the Queen Dowager. She instead deferred to Gojong's father, Heungseon Daewongun, literally the father of the king, took power. He had never held official office. He was now effectively the ruler of Korea. He had power, and the advantage of watching how it worked for 30 years before touching it. What the Andong Kim clan discovered, too late, was that the harmless drunk had been paying attention for 30 years. He knew every weakness in the system, every corrupt official, every abused institution, every policy that needed changing. He moved fast. He dismantled the Andong Kim clan's hold on the government. He abolished hundreds of private academies, Seowon, that had become power centers for aristocratic families while paying no taxes. He rebuilt the Gyeongbokgung Palace in Seoul, destroyed by the Japanese invasion of the 1590s, as a symbol of royal authority. He reformed the military. He reformed taxation. He brought talent into government, regardless of family connections. By most administrative measures, the reforms he pushed through were reasonable and effective. The problem was not what he did inside Korea. It was what he chose to do about the world outside it. But the world outside Korea was changing faster than Heungseon Daewongun was willing to acknowledge. Western powers and Japan were pressing against Korea's borders. French warships attacked in 1866 over the execution of Catholic missionaries. American warships probed Korean defenses in 1871 and were turned back. Daewongun's response was to close the doors harder. He posted stone monuments across Korea with a simple message: Koreans who advocate making peace with Westerners are traitors. He executed thousands of Korean Catholics. He refused diplomatic contact with Japan. He believed that Korea's isolation had preserved it, and that the preservation of tradition was the key to survival. The evidence from neighboring countries, China losing the Opium Wars, Japan being forced open by Perry, did not change his conclusion. He closed the doors. The threat he didn't account for was already living inside the palace. Heungseon Daewongun's downfall came from inside the palace. In 1866, his son, King Gojong, married a woman from the Yohung Min clan. She would be known as Empress Myeongseong, or in the West, Queen Min. She was intelligent, politically sophisticated, and she understood that Daewongun's isolationism was a path to destruction in the modern world. So she built a faction. She cultivated allies. In 1873, when Gojong declared that he would rule directly as an adult king, Daewongun was forced to step down. Empress Myeongseong had orchestrated it. He went into retirement furious. He came back twice, once with Japanese support in 1882, and once with Chinese support in 1894. Both times he was removed again. The woman he had underestimated kept beating him. He returned twice. She won twice. What happened to her eventually, and whether he had anything to do with it, is still one of the most debated questions in Korean history. In 1895, Japanese agents killed Empress Myeongseong in the palace she had lived in for decades. Daewongun had nothing to do with it, or possibly everything to do with it. Historians still argue over his level of involvement. What is not argued? The Korea he had tried to protect through isolation was annexed by Japan in 1910. Everything he had closed the doors against walked through the walls. Was he wrong? In retrospect, clearly. But the countries that opened their doors, China, Korea, Japan itself, were stripped of resources, sovereignty, and people in various combinations. There may have been no good option. He died in 1898. Korea was annexed 12 years later. Heungseon Daewongun pretended to be nothing for 30 years to survive. Then he ruled Korea for 10 years and tried to save it by closing it to the world. He failed. But here is the real question. Was his failure a failure of policy? Isolation was the wrong strategy? Or a failure of timing? Isolation might have worked 100 years earlier. And here is the question that follows. Is there a version of Korean history where Daewongun and Empress Myeongseong worked together instead of against each other? We don't know, because they didn't. This is the Dragon Throne. We cover the survivors who became rulers, the rulers who couldn't adapt, and the what-ifs that still define what Korea is today. Subscribe. New episode every week.